All right, let me start presenting. Oh, no, don't share it. My bad. Let's present. All right, class, thank you for watching my test review. Today, I will be going over the Delis-Kaplan Executive Function System, or shorthand is the D-KEFS. So before we begin, I'd like to describe what executive functioning actually is, just in case some people don't know. So executive function is a dopaminergic mechanism located in the frontal lobe, and it is an umbrella term used to define higher order processing. So processes such as planning, organizing, problem solving, concept formation, impulse control, inhibition, stuff like that. So now that we got that out the way, let's talk about the battery. The age range for this assessment is 8 to 89 years of age. It was created by Dean C. Delis, Edith Kaplan, and Joel H. Kramer, and was published in 2001. And this assessment is comprised of 9 subtests that necessitate all of the narrow abilities mentioned above. And with regards to price, this battery is relatively cheap when compared to the other batteries. I think a whisk is going to run you over $1,000, so this is about half the price. So now let's go over the test materials. So you obviously have a protocol, which is very thick, which is very big. It's 38 pages. So this is not for the faint of heart. Now we have one design fluency stimulus booklet, which goes with one of the subtests. It looks like this. And we also have 5 trail making stimulus booklets, but in my bag from the test library, we only had 1. So this is, I guess, an incomplete battery, but a full battery will have 4 of these guys right here. We have 1 building tower for another subtest, and this tower is accompanied by 5 blocks of varying sizes. So yeah, that's good. We also have 3 sets of sorting cards, which, yep, that is obviously for another subtest. And of course, we have a stimulus booklet. This thing is very big and very thick. And yeah, all 9 subtests are in here. So that is good. And of course, there's a examiner's manual that I didn't label, which obviously has all the norm data and scoring stuff in there. So now let's talk about the norm data. This battery was normed with a sample of 1,750 children, adolescents, and adults that was representative of the 2000 US Census. As you can see, there were 16 age groupings with about 75 to 175 people in each grouping, as you can see below. And sex, race, ethnicity, educational level, and geographic region were also related to the 2000 US Census. So now let's talk about reliability and validity, which kind of threw me in a loop for a second. With regards to reliability, there was mixed results when reliability was tested. Schmidt in 2003 said that only 17% of the reliability values published in the D-KEFS manual were above 0.8 value, which I guess 0.8 and over is strong reliability. This is a major criticism, but the authors don't find it to be a serious threat. Delis and Kaplan claim that many cognitive processes are being tapped when assessing executive function, so performance variability should be greater. Now, with regards to validity, most validity studies in the manual were focused on patients with Alzheimer's and Huntington's disease. The authors claimed that they wanted to prove that they could test executive function over many populations. And the authors also claim that the lack of validity tests are due to the fact that a lot of tests are modified measures with pre-existing validity, so they didn't find that necessary to do. Now let's go over the subtest and CHC theory. The first subtest in the booklet is a trail making test with, as I said earlier, has 5 conditions, and you can see there's visual scanning, number sequencing, letter sequencing, number letter switching, and motor speed. This test measures visual scanning and motor speed relative to each condition. And with regards to CHC, this is a processing speed as a broad ability, and the narrow ability would be rate of test taking. And I just want to show you the stimulus booklet. This is visual scanning, which is, as you can see, the first condition, and this is more of a baseline measure. And the rule for this is the practice one. is to cross out all the threes. And then this is the actual assessment. You can see there's a bunch of numbers and letters, and then you can probably put 2 and 2 together, what you're supposed to do for the rest of the assessment. But for this baseline measure, we're just supposed to cross out all of the threes. Next, we have word context test, and this is kind of cool. The examiner provides the examinee with a pseudo word, and then we ask a range of 5 questions ranging from very vague to extremely specific, and the examinee has to guess what the pseudo word means after all 5 questions. And I'll give you a quick look at that. So this is the practice item, and the practice item is SEV. First question is, what might SEV mean? Many people eat SEVs. So yeah, as you can see, that's the first question, and it is already very vague. The next assessment is sorting, and there are 16 sorting concepts over 2 conditions. Condition 1 is a free sort where the examinee sorts the cards into various groups. And in condition 2, the examinee tries to guess the rule of the sort. Let's see, do I have the cards here, or no, let's just go to the next page. Oh, and for word context test with regards to CFC, it is a fluid reasoning. Broad ability and general sequential reasoning is being tested as well. And with sorting test, again, it's GF as well, and the narrow ability being tested is induction. So now we have 6 more, obviously, because there's 9. And the next one would be 20 questions. With this subtest, we present the examinee with 30 common objects, as you can see right here. And the examinee has to ask the fewest amount of yes/no questions in order to guess the unknown target objects. And again, just like the previous one, it's fluid reasoning, and we are testing induction as well. Next, we have the tower test, and this is a measure of planning, problem solving, rule learning, and impulse control. And unfortunately, I cannot find this in the cross-battery assessment book, but you can obviously see how this is a measure of executive functioning. And like I showed you earlier, you have 5 discs varying in size, and the examinee will have a tower in a set position with set rules. And the goal is to get the discs into the target position that is exposed in the stimulus. Now we have color word interference test, which is very similar to the Stroop test. And if you're not familiar with the Stroop test, here's an example next to it. It will have a color written out, but the ink will be a different color. So I have blue written out, but it's in green ink. And we try and trick and test the examiner just to say whatever's prompted. With this assessment, there's 4 conditions. So one might be to say the ink color, one might be to say the color in writing. So as you can see, this can be very tricky and very tough. Like I said, it measures inhibition of verbal responses, and there's multiple conditions with varying rules. And with regards to CHC, this is a measure of learning, efficiency, and retrieval. And what we're testing here is naming facility. And lastly, we have verbal fluency. The examinee has 60 seconds to name all the words they can think of that correctly answers the prompt. So some prompts can be just a letter, some prompts can be name items of furniture or stuff like that. So yeah, with regards to CHC, this is GLR again, and now the narrow ability would be ideational fluency. Next, we have the design fluency test. Let me grab that booklet again. So there's 3 conditions here. Condition 1 would be to match all the filled dots in as many different ways as you can. So we have 5 dots here, and we want to connect them in as many different possible ways as possible. And here we go, condition 2. Next page. There we go. Next, we want to connect all of the empty dots. And let me guess, the last one we want to switch. We want to switch off. We want to go from filled dot to empty dot. And this is a measure of GLR, and the narrow ability being tested is figural fluency. And lastly, we have proverbs, which in my opinion is the most culturally loaded subtest in the battery. And the examinee is presented with 8 common and uncommon idioms and asked to interpret. There's two common conditions, free inquiry and multiple choice. So for example, one of them in the battery is Rome wasn't built in a day. So with condition 1, they would have to describe what that means. And the multiple choice, they would obviously have 4 options to choose which one's the best. And this is obviously a component of crystallized intelligence, and narrow ability is language development. Scoring. This assessment is very, like I said a million times, very detailed, very nuanced, very thorough. So scoring this can be very, very difficult if it's your first time, if, I don't know, if you're not familiar with this battery. So let me just show you what it looks like on the inside here. So there are many different ways to score this, but luckily there is a software that comes with the battery, so that can help first timers or people who are new to this. Like, look how much stuff there is. So much more than, let's say, like a KABC or a Whisk. So it is overwhelming. I was overwhelmed for the first 2 weeks that I had this thing. So yeah, so luckily there's a software. And with this battery, you do get scaled scores with an average of 10 and a standard deviation of 3. I just want to talk about the battery now, personally and practically. Personally, I found this assessment very overwhelming at first, like I said. And I've said this a million times. The assessment is very thorough and very detailed. Each subtest has many conditions, which allows for many different scoring interpretations, just as you can get the raw scores, the scale scores, error analysis, optimal scores. So yeah, it is not for the faint of heart. And my opinion will be hours of practice will be needed until mastery. And practically, this assessment is commonly used in a neuropsych setting. As I said earlier, with the Alzheimer's and the Huntington's disease, it can help distinguish cortical malfunctions that elicit deficiencies. In school, I would recommend that this can be an additional assessment for an ADHD referral. As I said in the introduction, executive functioning is a dopaminergic function located in the frontal lobe, and with ADHD's pathology, there's a lack of dopamine. So you can use this test to help maybe solidify some hypothesis that you might have. And yeah, this was the source that I used to help me do this test review. So yeah, thank you class for watching, and I hope you learned a thing or two. Let me stop sharing and stop recording. How do I do that? There we go.